I've gotten a lot of questions about how you should improve your calculation in the game of chess. There are already quite a lot of videos on this topic.
What's up guys, today I'd love to share with you 3 simple rules that allow you to get better at chess straight away.
And I don't like this. Igor Smirnov is a fantastic chess teacher. I actually really love Remote Chess Academy. I will 100% endorse them. That being said, the tips he's given in this video seem fundamentally unhelpful. What he seems to focus a lot on is giving you a rule set to follow while you're calculating. None of that actually teaches you how to improve the underlying skills behind calculation.
You may wish to think about this for a couple seconds yourself and pick a move that you would play if you are white.
Okay, rook h8.
Now let's think about this together.
Guy moving ahead until he talks about the mate in 2.
All of a sudden, you turn this winning position into a loss. And that turns you into late Bobby Fischer when you start saying, I hate chess, I don't want to play it.
Sorry, that actually got to me a little bit. Sorry, it reminds me of like, you can only get good at chess if you love the game by Grandmaster Bobby Fischer. And then by the time he's world champion, it becomes, I hate chess, I hate chess, I hate chess. Just the juxtaposition between these two quotes will never not crack me up.
Before you even begin thinking about your own move, ask yourself the first question we're going to talk about is, what does he want? Or she wants, if you're playing against a woman.
There's a mate in 2. Just like, and this is what I mean. Like, what do they want? Do they have checks? Do they have that?
And the final check that I can see in the position is rook h8, and that actually is a checkmate in 2 moves.
There we go. And that's what I mean. Fundamentally unhelpful. If you are really good at spotting these tactics and these mate in 2 tactics, you'll win. Otherwise, you won't. Thanks for watching. And like I said, he's an excellent chess teacher, but I just see this so much. Like here, this chess thinking system feels like cheating. And what does he talk about?
This simple 3-step thinking system feels like cheating. It's basically like steroids, but for chess.
This is AI, isn't it?
Call it the BAD strategy. And to demonstrate it, we're going to go through a recent instructive game of mine.
So they're going through the game, and then they have their thinking system, which is B stands for like blunders, A stands for attack, and D stands for development. Is this gonna help anyone? Has there ever been a viewer who's like, wait, I'm not supposed to blunder? Oh, I didn't know that because I am stupid. I'm just like lost for words. Smirnov, Igor Smirnov, you've made so many good videos, but then when it comes to calculation, they just like lose their mind. When you're playing a blitz game, just go through every possible check. Like, you don't have the time. Then there are even more types of videos. Not you, Andrastov. You're amazing.
Thank you, Red Panda.
But apart from him, listen, I'm my favorite, okay? You can tell by my recommendations is that he's really good. Chess Dojo.
Knight takes f7. Black is going to throw in queen, bishop takes f4, check. We have to go queen takes f4, then king takes f7, then white is sacrificed to piece. And in this position, I was calculating, okay, we have bishop takes e6 check, but maybe even better is rook takes e6. Basically, this is the moment where I stopped calculating. I thought maybe black can like play like king f8 there or something. I can go rook d1, maybe we have something else. But in my mind's eye, I basically just evaluated the position. I just stopped there. And I even wrote in the Discord, like, if this was a blitz game, that's where I would stop.
Here he's forgetting the fact that he's an IM, so he's a lot more capable of evaluating a position than his students are. So that leaves the question, how do you actually do this then? A lot of ways that people try and teach calculations, and all of them suck. I'm sorry, but they do. How do you improve at calculation? I think there are multiple steps to go about this, and I think it's a little bit ELO specific as well. I don't like ELO specific training. I think a lot of it will boil down to like, when you're below the rating of 20 to 100, you really shouldn't study openings because it is pointless. You just spam tactics and you'll win games. It will just really help your chess if by move 4 you don't know what you're doing anymore, and then you'll be like, oh, I mean, I guess I like develop and then I move back, but I don't want to lose the bishop pair, so I move back again, and so like stop. It's okay to learn some openings, just don't overdo it like with everything in life. So I don't like ELO specific advice, but I think it counts here a little bit, mostly because the way you approach your calculation training is depend on the level of tactical and board vision that you have. So the first step is to improve your tactical vision, and I've talked about this before, but the way you do that is by solving in simple puzzles first and solving a lot of them. An easy and free way to go about this is to go to your lichess puzzle settings, select the difficulty level to be easiest, and I would even recommend doing them as unrated, and then just try and solve these kinds of very simple positions for your level. Now you'll find that these are super easy, but you know, when you're exposed to a lot of tactical patterns, this will improve your play. Here we're down a lot of material. There's a hand in bishop, which is good to notice, but you know, if we take the bishop, we're still dead lost. They have a queen. So what do? Well, we have a check. It's actually almost made. They have to take, and then I have another check, and that's made. So this is a simple mate in 2 puzzle. When you just start out, this might take you like a couple minutes to find. That is how you do these things, and then it's made, and then you've completed the puzzle, and you just do a lot of these. They can be made in 2s, they can be sacrifices. You can even practice by puzzle themes. If you notice that I'm getting a lot of these like pins, I always get pins from and do like a super easy pin puzzle. That's how you get your tactical and board vision up. But then we're still not calculating, because I might be really good at spotting 1-move threats. Then how do I actually improve that calculation? Then what is a simple way to train your ability to calculate through positions? First thing I would actually recommend is to solve a lot of king and pawn endgame positions. Mostly because these types of positions are all about calculation. So I'm giving you this position, think about it for yourself and try and solve it. We have this 4 on 3 over here. So to me it's very clear that we should be doing something with that. And there's an idea of going f5. And I feel like you have to see at least 3 things. First of all, what happens when they take? Now when you're practicing calculation, what I'm doing now is actually not something you should be doing. You should not be drawing arrows, because a large part of calculation is visualization. I will just move the pieces for the sake of the video. What happens if they take? Oh, a couple interesting things. We have like both of these pawns, and this pawn is the only one that actually is stopping both of them. So if we here play the move e6, there's actually nothing black can do to prevent us from making a queen. What happens if they ignore us? Right, that's interesting. Here I see an interesting move, pawn to e6. Still, we're threatening to make a queen, so you take here, I take here, I win. And the opposite way, you take here, I take here, I win. And then finally, what happens if they play e6? Okay, so here I can take. I don't think it actually matters which way you take, because either way you end up with the same pawn structure. And then here you need to see the move pawn f4. Like essentially can't do anything here. And here we get to play the move f5. And either way they take, we actually win. They can't get closer, because this pawn controls this square and this pawn controls this square. So that's what you had to see from this position. So there's actually quite a lot of calculation to do. Okay, another one. And it's white to move and win. There are actually technically 2 winning moves. I will only cover one because I think it's a bit easier to understand. Take your time and figure it out. Alright, so here the king f4 is also winning. I think pawn a3 is slightly easier to understand. It's very clear that if we play a move here like pawn a4, they get the symmetrical position over here. That there's just simply no progress to be made. Essentially, we can only just shuffle back and forward now. But because pawns can sometimes move 2 squares and sometimes 1, a pawn on the back rank is actually a pretty good asset in these kinds of endgames, because we can always determine which tempo we're on. So let's play a3. Now if they play a5, now we can play a4. And this position is different, because it's black to move. And they're in Sukswan. And that's always a bit hard to see in these king and pawn endgames, but it's also what makes them so fascinating. Like, these are awesome positions. If this king goes somewhere where they lose control of the d5 square, we can just get in. Game over. So what happens if they go d6? Because now they keep contact with this pawn over here. Now there's a second technique of these endgames, which is outflanking. Here our king can go to f5. If the king goes to c6, here we mirror, and still he has to give up control of the d5 square. Okay, but they don't have to go a5. They could go d6 immediately. Same technique. f5, king d7, king e5, king c6, king e6. We're just outflanking them. So that's the first simple way to improve your calculation. Solve king and pawn endgames. So by the time we've seen a lot of tactical motifs, calculation will start becoming a more and more important part of your games. From here on, the best way to improve will be to solve positions. These can either be from your own games, interesting moments you find actually during plays or when you're analyzing your games, or from more complicated puzzles. You know, so not simple one-move tactics. This could be a position that could arrive from one of your games. And here you saw your opponent play the move pawn g4. During the game, you considered knight takes g4, but you were thinking, well, I can drop back and then I can always break. So let me just go bishop g6. So now let's say you're analyzing afterwards and you're thinking like, well, I did quickly look at knight g4, but I'm actually kind of curious. That could be an exercise for you. Evaluate whether the sacrifice knight takes g4 works. And this is not really an exercise of try to find the forced win. This is an exercise of try and go as deep as you can. It takes some level of creativity. I did this exercise too, and I'll just show you what I saw. So here I saw that if knight takes g4, pawn takes, bishop takes, we have this pin. So very likely we want to do something like queen f6 to put more pressure on the piece. Now there's actually quite a lot of defensive tries. A lot of them look very silly to me, except for this move knight e3. And if we just move the bishop back, they've gained a lot of time suddenly to defend everything. And also what's nice is they're bringing the knight back to defend the king side. I think black is completely losing if not for one move, which is the move pawn to f5. If you got at least this far, you'll get half credit. Now here there's a bunch of things to evaluate. There's a lot of tension everywhere. And when you're calculating ahead like this, you don't need to see every little thing. But it is at least very important that you go through all the forcing moves. So over here, a forcing move would be knight takes g4. Well, I saw that f takes. I thought knight h2 was probably the best move, seeing as how it keeps the knight close to the king. There is some pressure here on this pawn. So while I would normally really like to bring my queen into h4, here there's just queen g4 offering the queen trade. That doesn't look nice. So here instead, rook f4 would be a move. Then we can get our queen in, and then it's a matter of how do you evaluate this position. But okay, that wasn't just knight takes, there's also pawn takes pawn. Like, I mean, our bishop is hanging, so we have to take with the bishop. You're gonna have to look at the forcing moves, so knight takes knight, rook takes knight. And here I concluded white's probably just better. This king is actually hard to get to. It can just go to h1. This knight can go to h2. And while we definitely have some initiative, I really don't think it's enough. So then going back to this position, I don't think knight g4 is that good a move. And this is just something that you need to train. Like, for example, let's say you reach this position in one of your games with the white pieces. And here you're really looking at this position and you're thinking, I don't think that this sacrifice still works. How do you evaluate this? And this is just something you need to practice. Like, a lot of people here will say, oh, but they take back, I get the open file, this looks scary, I'm probably worse. You're not calculating there. You're actually not doing anything. So calculation in that case just boils down to not being lazy. Like, a lot of people here will say, oh, this looks scary, so I won't do it. And then they go to YouTube and then they look up, how do I calculate? And it's like, you calculate by doing it. You can't both look up these videos like, oh, I want to get better at calculation, and then play a game and then be like, I don't wanna. It looks scary. I feel like it is not good. You need to do it to get better at it. And it's not always the most practical, time efficient thing to do. So yeah, pick and choose your battles, especially if you're playing like online rapid or blitz. But calculation is something you can only get better at by doing it. So go do it in your games. Now, another huge part of calculation is visualization. And a pretty underrated practice method is blindfolded chess. So what you do, there's this website, blindfoldchess.online. By the way, not affiliated, just a website that's free. And then just go practice. Like, square colors is a good one. So you need to quickly identify whether square is light or black. T2, so that's a dark square. And then it'll be like E1, that's a dark square. And then it'll be like C4, that's a light square. And then it'll be H2, that's a dark square. And then G4, that's a light square. And then E3, that's a dark square. I can probably do this for ages, you get it. And you know, you don't see the board in front of you, so it's of course a little bit tricky. And then there are more complicated ones, like for example, position memory. So they give you a position. This one is pretty simple actually. So, you know, I've already memorized it. And then you just need to recreate it. There we go. Hey, I got it. And that's also a pretty good exercise. So just memorize these positions. This will improve your board vision somewhat. And then there's another website, Lee's Study, visualization practice. So here they give you this position and they tell you the following moves were played. So then you need to visualize rook e1. Like I said, do this without arrows. Bishop takes f3, pawn takes f3, and then knight h4, and then they say why to play and win. So if you can visualize this, they're currently threatening the checkmate with g2. But I'm also noticing just a basic tactical pattern in the position, which is the fact that this bishop here pins the pawn. So actually you have a really nice queen sacrifice. Queen f7, rook takes, rook e8, queen f7, right? And then they played rook f7, so then we play rook e8 checkmate. And that's how you do it. And then you know what? Then you can up it. So instead of 4, let's do 6 moves in the future, and then it gives you more. The best way you can improve them isn't by going all in and doing like a billion of them in one day. Just pick one exercise you like. You know, whether that's the square colors, whether that's the position memory, whether that's the blind tactics. Do like 1 or 2 of them when you get back home from school, or when you wake up in the morning, or whatever. And I promise you, calculation will get a lot easier for you.